You know the smell. The first drops hit the pavement, and something shifts in the air. It's earthy, it's clean. It feels almost impossible to describe. But here's the strange part. That smell has a name. Scientists gave it one decades ago. And once you learn what's actually happening when you breathe it in, you'll never smell rain the same way again. Close your eyes and think about the last time it rained after a long dry spell. Maybe you were walking outside. Maybe you were sitting by an open window. The smell arrived before the rain did. It rolled in on the wind, thick and mineral, almost sweet. You didn't choose to notice it. Your body noticed it for you. That's not an accident. That reaction is older than you think. In 1964, two Australian researchers, Isabel Baer and Richard Thomas, set out to understand this exact smell. They were working at the CSIRO, Australia's national science agency. And they discovered something remarkable. The scent wasn't coming from the rain itself. Rain is just water. Water has no smell. The smell was coming from the ground. Baer and Thomas gave this phenomenon a name. They called it petrichor. It comes from two Greek words, petra, meaning stone, and ichor, the fluid that was believed to flow through the veins of the gods in Greek mythology. A smell made of stone and god blood. That's how seriously they took it. And honestly, once you understand the science, the name feels earned. Here's what's actually happening. During dry periods, plants release oils into the soil and onto nearby rocks. These oils build up slowly over days, sometimes weeks. At the same time, certain bacteria in the soil, particularly a genus called Streptomyces, produce a compound called geosmin. Geosmin is remarkably powerful. Your nose can detect it at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. 5 parts per trillion. That's like detecting a single drop of dye in an Olympic swimming pool. When raindrops fall, especially light rain after a dry spell, they hit the ground and trap tiny air bubbles. Those bubbles shoot upward through the drop and burst at the surface, releasing a fine mist of aerosols into the air. This process was studied in detail by researchers at MIT, including Cullen Buie and Young-Soo Jung, who used high-speed cameras to capture it in 2015. They found that this aerosol release isn't random. It happens most efficiently with light to moderate rainfall. Heavy rain doesn't produce nearly as much scent because the drops move too fast to trap the bubbles properly. So the smell of rain isn't really about the rain at all. It's about everything the rain disturbs. The oils, the geosmin, the dust, all of it gets launched into the air in a fine, invisible spray, and it drifts toward you on the breeze, sometimes minutes before the rain even reaches you. That's why you can smell a storm coming. Now here's where it gets stranger. Why does your brain react so strongly to this particular smell? Why does it feel good? Why does it feel like relief? Some researchers believe the answer goes back to human evolution itself. For most of human history, water determined survival. Finding it meant the difference between life and death, especially in dry climates. A team led by geologist Diana Sherwood at the University of Wisconsin has explored how ancient humans, and even earlier hominins, may have relied on scent cues to track down water sources across vast landscapes. A sensitivity to petrichor and geosmin may have offered a real survival advantage. The humans who could detect rain before it arrived, who could smell water in the ground, had an edge. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that sensitivity didn't disappear. It stayed wired into the human nose. Think about that for a moment. You're not imagining that the smell affects you. Your nervous system was quite literally shaped to respond to it. Somewhere in your ancient biology, a signal fires that says, "Water is here," or "Water is coming," and something in you relaxes. There's another twist. Camels can smell rain from over 80 kilometers away. Elephants have been observed traveling for days towards storms they couldn't have seen or heard, only smelled. If animals with far less complex brains than ours evolved this sensitivity, it tells you just how critical this particular scent has been across the history of life on land. You're not the only species carrying this ancient wiring. You're part of a much older pattern. But petrichor isn't a single simple molecule. It's a mixture. Along with geosmin, Rain often releases ozone, especially just before a storm, when lightning splits oxygen molecules apart in the upper atmosphere and they recombine into ozone, which drifts down on the wind. That's the sharp, almost metallic edge you sometimes catch before the first drop even falls. Combine that with plant oils, soil bacteria, and dust, and you get a scent cocktail that's different every single time depending on where you are, what's
growing nearby, and how long it's been since the last rain. This is part of why petrichor feels so specific to a place. The smell of rain in a forest is not the smell of rain on a city street. The smell of rain in the desert is unlike almost anything else on Earth, because the soil there has spent so long building up oils and geosmin with nothing to wash them away. Desert rain, for many people, is described as one of the most intense versions of this smell that exists. Geosmin shows up in more places than you'd expect to. It's the reason beets taste earthy. It's part of what gives some wines and certain types of water a distinct, musty edge if geosmin levels get too high. Your body is remarkably tuned to this compound across multiple senses, not just smell. Some flavor scientists believe humans may be uniquely sensitive to geosmin compared to other primates, though research into exactly why is still ongoing. So the next time the smell of rain hits you, you're not just noticing weather. You're noticing a chain of events that starts with drought-stressed plants and soil bacteria, gets launched into the air by the physics of a falling raindrop, and lands on receptors in your nose that were shaped by millions of years of ancestors who needed to find water to survive. It's chemistry, it's physics, it's evolution, all happening in a single breath without you ever thinking about it. There's something oddly moving about that. A smell most people never question, one that just feels good. Turns out to be one of the oldest signals your body still listens to. Long before language, before agriculture, before humans built shelter from the rain instead of walking toward it, this scent meant something. It meant the dry season was ending. It meant the land was about to come back to life. It meant survival was a little more certain. You don't track rain to survive anymore. You probably won't walk toward a storm the way an elephant does. But somewhere inside you, that old signal is still firing. Every time it rains, your body remembers something your mind never learned. And that, it turns out, is the real reason the smell of rain feels less like a scent and more like a memory you didn't know you had.